Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Bryant of Parenting Beyond Punishment and locally here in Atlanta, Georgia, Wild Child Counseling. And I'm really grateful that you're here today to join us in this learning session. I'm also really happy to be welcoming Bonnie Harris today. Bonnie is the Director of Connective Parenting. She's a parent, coach, and counselor, and she's also the author of two highly acclaimed books, When Your Kids Push Your Buttons and Confident Parents, Remarkable Kids, 8 Principles for Raising Kids You'll Love to Live With. To learn more, you can visit her website, connectiveparenting.com. Welcome, Bonnie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Amy. It's nice to be here.
Thank you.
Connecting with all these nice people.
Yes. So we're going to talk about what we can do to help navigate struggles between siblings and ways we can be involved with that also help build our children's skills.
Yes.
And so I'm just right. And so I just want to open the floor up to you and see, you know, where would you like to start in this talk?
Well, I am assuming that most of the people listening have siblings, and you're here because you're probably tearing your hair out. Just to let you know where I am with that, I have 2 grown kids, so I don't deal with sibling fights anymore, but I have 3 grandchildren, all siblings, of 5.5-year-old and 3.5-year-old twins. And boy, let me tell you, does that bring up sibling issues. So I'm in the thick of it there. I know how frustrating it is for parents when their kids fight. You know, you have a second or third or fourth or fifth child because you want your kids to grow up together. You want to have a big family. You want your kids to be loyal and love each other and all of that. And you get into it, and then there's just all this fighting. And for so many parents, it just leaves them feeling distraught, exhausted, guilty, resentful. You name it. And all of those feelings are what provoke our reactions. And so I know that all of you have reacted to your kids in ways that you just think, why did I do that? I hate it. So we all do that. We react. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. It's automatic. And then it's like, oh, I blew that one. And your kids, are the victim of your screaming and yelling and your nagging and your frustration and all of that. And you don't want that any more than your kids do. So let me just put in a little plug here for When Your Kids Push Your Buttons. What that is about is why you react systematically the way you do and how to stop that. And it has almost nothing to do with your kids, believe it or not, and all to do with your past, how you were brought up, the messages that you got from your parents, the expectations that you have come into this process with, and the expectations you now have of your kids that are much of the time, they're inappropriate and unrealistic. So all of that, if you want to look into it deeper, I would highly suggest When Your Kids Push Your Buttons. But the model of that is letting you know that it is your emotions that cause your reactions, but where do your emotions come from? Your emotions come from the thoughts that you have. So when you think, oh my God, here we go again, or why can't they ever listen, or why can't they just be nice to each other? Those thoughts, whatever they are, the thoughts that you have, the ideas, the judgments, and they're all your perception, that is what provokes your emotions. So if you want to change your reactions, you can't just say, I'm just not going to get angry anymore. Good luck with that one. You've got to go back to what you're thinking. So when you react in a way that you don't like, ask yourself, if I reacted that way, what must I have been feeling? That's pretty easy to identify. If I felt that way, what must I have been thinking? It's the thoughts that are really much harder to identify, because they happen in a nanosecond. We don't even realize it's part of the process, but that's the key. So anyway, I've got a lot of sort of little tricks that you can try with your kids, as well as really getting into helping them create a relationship. So we'll talk about all of that. So the tricks are things like when you hear your kids fighting, just stick your head in the room and say, is this fight okay with both of you? And see what they say, rather than coming in with, can't keep it down, what's going on, who started it, why are you doing all this? Just try, is this fight okay with both of you? And if they just sort of look, then just say, okay, I'll be back in the kitchen, and just leave. Or, one of them screams for you, and you can go in with a paper and pencil and sit down and say, okay, now I want you each to tell me exactly what happened, because I have to write it all down so I know what to do here. And that's just silly. Another thing you can do is, at a good time, take your kids into the various rooms where fights are most likely to break out, and have them choose a corner, choose a spot in that room that's theirs. So if you have to go in and break up a fight, you can just say, get to your corners, and they know what to do. So those are just some silly little tricks that sometimes work, most of the time don't, but you can try it out. The most important thing, I think, is for you, the parent, to understand from the get-go that your kids are going to fight. There's all these rules of no, and they're also going to hit each other. These rules of no fighting, no hitting in this family, you're going to be batting your head against a brick wall from now until you hit your grave, because that is just not going to happen. Kids fight. It is the nature of the sibling relationship, to different degrees, of course. What you want to look at is, do they also play well together? I think that's the key. If your kids almost never play together, if their comments to each other and are really cutting and mean, and now again, your definition of mean and mine might be quite different, because mean is a judgment. So you want to be able to see if there is deep resentment going on. And we can talk about that. Hopefully we'll get some questions about things like that. But it's very important for you, the parent, to realize that it is not your job to end your sibling fights, to get them to be polite and kind to each other all the time. That is not your job. Breathe. I hope that that's a relief.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get that. So much of what our kids are dealing with is not our job to fix. So one of my little mantras is teach less, be more. We just spend too much time focused on how much we have to teach our children. And that percentage is probably about 10% of your time you actually do formal teaching. It's the rest of it is all about developing relationship. So let's see. Once you get that it's not your job to make them love each other or even like each other, it does hopefully will take a burden off you, but you've got to get that from knowing, oh, somebody said that, or I've heard several people say that, to really getting it down in your gut. It's a journey to be able, it's a real letting go. And when you can let go of that it is not your responsibility to stop their fights, to get them to be the way you want them to be. A lot of it, we want our kids to be quiet because we don't want to hear the screaming and yelling, right? It's our problem. But once you get that that's not your job, you are going to be such a better help to them on how to actually manage their relationship. So I am not saying I wash my hands of this, you guys are on your own, I'm out of here. That's not what I'm talking about. You can be very involved, but not intervening, not interfering, not getting in there and trying to get them to do what you want them to do. They need to do what they want to do, and they need your help as a neutral facilitator to figure that out. So the important thing here is to realize that so in this not having the responsibility, it means you don't have to have the answer of what's the right thing to do. You don't have to know who did it, who did what to whom. As a matter of fact, you should not know. It's so much better when you don't know what happened. So don't go in with who did what, who started it. You don't have to know that, and you shouldn't know that, because you will be much more of a help to them if you don't.
You know, I might say something. What really struck me with that is when we don't focus on someone to blame, it takes so much shame out of it. And it really helps us step back and say, you know, who knows where this started? You know, some small infraction that was maybe misinterpreted even, but what can we do to move forward? Right? I love
Right.
that. It's so great.
I actually call my sibling process and what you do as a facilitator the no blame solution. So blame is what gets us really messed up, because and we do it because we were blamed when we were kids. It's how we know to do it, and we think, well, if we're not blaming, if we're not saying, you know, Sammy, why did you do that? Then you're letting them get away with it. We don't, you know, it's two ends of the spectrum, and we need to look at, you know, the gray areas that are in the middle that we tend to jump over and ignore. We're either leaving them to their own devices, or we're nagging and punishing and sending them to their rooms and yelling at them and all that stuff. So a lot of the time, there is one child who is the perpetrator, shall we say, the one who does the hitting, the one who does the pushing, the shoving, the screaming. And the other one is, we tend to think of the other one as the innocent victim. but actually the other one is the provocateur. So one thing that happens a lot when parents just step back and watch is you might see that the one who you think of as the innocent victim has, in some way, shape, or form, done some provoking to the other one. And the other one is coping with it, telling them to stop, pushing them, grabbing something that they took, in their little childlike ways. And it comes to blows when they can't cope anymore. And so we've got to realize that when a situation comes to screaming and hitting and pushing, it means that your kids have gotten to their level of coping. They can't do it anymore. They actually have been doing it, right? Or they'll be playing nicely, and then one takes a toy of the other, even a toy that the other child hasn't looked at in a year, but it belongs to him, and the other one takes it, and it's, no, that's mine. You can't have it. It's mine. Little kids are very, very territorial, and boy, what's theirs, they want to cling on to. Oh, I'm just thinking of all the things I want to say here. I should so much, because I make a note, Amy, to talk about taking turns versus just
sharing. Taking turns versus sharing.
Yeah, but also even a better alternative to taking turns. But just
excellent.
Saying,
okay.
Yeah. So let me describe to you what I call the triangle game. Mm-hmm. Typically what happens when kids fight, and I ask parents this all the time, what's the first thing that happens? And it's usually one of them, either the screaming gets so loud that they go in, or one of the kids comes to them or calls to them, right? So you, the parent, you are sucked into the situation, right? You come in, and typically there's a what happened, right, from you. And so you make the point of the triangle, and the kids are the two base points of the triangle. Everything they say is to you. He took that toy. I told him he couldn't have it, and he took it. And then the other one, no, I didn't. He did this first. And everything comes to you, the parent, right? So those 3 points, nothing is happening down here between these two. Everything, I wish I had a drawing here. Everything is coming to the parent, you. Because why? Because for one thing, you, the parent, know that it's your job to stop this fighting, and that you have obviously failed as a parent if you still have these kids who are fighting and you haven't taught them yet. So that's all going on with you. So you are hooked into the responsibility of doing something about this. And the two kids know it because you set yourself up as the judge and jury. And your kids are like excellent little lawyers who are building a case against the other child. So they have to convince you that they're right and the other one is wrong, because the reward is winning and the punishment is losing. So the winner gets off scot-free, and the one who gets yelled at or punished is obviously the loser. So whoever gets that, points get racked up in their minds. If one of them gets in trouble because of the other one, let's say let's say Sammy hit Jonah. And so because he did the hitting, he gets yelled at, he gets something taken away, he gets sent to his room, whatever. So is he going to go to his room and think, oh, I'm really going to be kind to Jonah from now on? Right. He's going to start racking up those points, wait till I get back at him, and he's going to get sneakier as he gets older. He's going to get sneakier and sneakier about it. All of this stuff you don't want. You don't want this stuff to happen. So, but you don't know what else to do. So they come to you, they set you up as the judge and jury. You take on that role because that's what you think you have to be. And you tell them what they have to do. Whether there's any kind of punishment involved or not, you're tell what you need to give him that toy. He said he had it first, so he gets it. Anyway, whatever you say needs to happen is going to feel probably unfair to at least one of them. And it's your solution to their problem, right? They are the ones who are having the problem. You don't need it. You don't need to have anything to do with that problem. So when you think of that triangle, what you want to do is get what they're telling you about the situation, because you don't need to know. You shouldn't know anything about this. You want to turn that direction. You want to cut that off to you and get that communication going between the two of them. You need to tell Sammy how you feel about that. Well, Sammy, what do you think about what Jonah said? Does that seem fair to you? No. Do you have an idea that you could throw in here? So you're facilitating them working it out. And this can get, real involved with real conflict resolution, which conflict resolution is a piece of problem solving, which is how the whole family can be run, with no blame, no punishment, no yelling, it's all about relationship. Problem solving is all about, how do we make this relationship work? This isn't working for me. I don't like it when this happens. You want this, I want that. How do we make it work for both of us? So what you're doing with your kids, with the siblings, is you're getting them to do the same thing. Sammy, you want one thing, Jonah, you want the other thing. How do you both get what you want? Now, it obviously gets a little more complicated than that, but that is the principle. How do you both get what you want? And when we leave the problem, the solution to the problem, to our kids, it's amazing what they come up with. They can solve their problems. However, they're not going to do that if they have grown dependent on you doing whatever, fixing it, solving it in whatever way you think needs to happen. So when your kids are, if you start doing this when your kids are like 8 and 10 or something like that, and you say, so what do you think you need to do to get what you want? You're going to get, I don't know. And if you get, I don't know, that means they have grown dependent on you or some adult to solve the problem for them. So that means all those neural pathways are not used to firing. And I think, I don't have scientific research on this, but I think the more you get your kids problem solving, and you can start at age 2, the more they know that their opinions count, that they can come up with the solution to a problem, that they can figure it out, the more those neural pathways are firing and their brain is developing more. So what we do know about teenagers is the prefrontal cortex is not completed until into the 20s. And the prefrontal cortex is about figuring things out, thinking about the consequences of one's behavior, all the executive function stuff that happens. And I believe, this is just Bonnie Harris, I believe that if kids are used to problem solving from the time they're young, that prefrontal cortex develops faster and they are not as risk prone as teenagers. You can quote me on that, but don't hold me to it.
I was thinking, Bonnie, that what I hear a lot from parents is I just want my kids to be friends. I want them to grow up and be each other's best friends and to like each other. And so I think that that really makes a strong case for if no one wins and no one loses, then no one's feeling resentment against the other.
That's exactly right.
I mean, they still have little hurts. They still are going to hurt each other. And that's part of that give and take of any relationship. As
Yep.
parents, we sometimes emotionally hurt our children, and not because we want to, but we're learning and growing. And it's going to be the same for them. But I just really like that, when there is no loser and no winner, you're really nurturing that relationship they have together.
Absolutely. And you're letting them figure it out. So they're going to do it in the way that makes sense to them, not in
Yes.
the way that makes sense to you.
Yes.
That might not be
Right.
something they would come up with.
And they're a different person. I love the solutions that children come up with. Like they can be so off the wall. It helps me think of something different. Like, oh gosh, I never would have thought that we could stack the pillows up in the corner and that would be a good way for y'all to separate yourselves, or,
Yeah.
that y'all, it's just so interesting the
Yeah.
things they come up
I
with.
know. Or call in the dog to lick up the milk.
Yes. Oh,
It's just, these wonderful, they're so, what we want to do is keep encouraging and supporting these little imaginations that are so creative and
yeah.
genius.
Yes.
When we keep telling them, you do what I tell you to do, what we're doing is just wiping those out. And
Yes.
they just, it's
Yeah.
so sad, and it's not what any parent wants.
No, it's totally antithetical to long-term goals.
Yes.
What also is really helpful is, we know they have immature brains. They just haven't matured enough. And so when we're there, just present, helping them problem solve, it helps keep them emotionally regulated because our brain can be emotionally regulated, right? And so it brings that calm into that discussion.
Exactly.
And granted, we're not always calm, right? Sometimes we just get heated right along with them, but we can get calm. And that's so helpful too. And it teaches their brains how to get calm too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if there's that moment when they're really going at each other and they can't listen to anything and they don't, then typically what happens is the parent comes in and starts yelling and saying all this stuff and all these words. And I think the best thing to do is just get your body between them and just, make a big X with your body and just yell stop or one word, and that is it. This is not the time to teach a lesson of any kind.
Right.
Get them apart, and you can say, get to your corners.
Yeah.
Establish that.
Right.
And not to wait until they're a little bit calmed down to then be able to do the problem solving and saying, this doesn't. And the other thing is a lot of situations involve a toy, and and the parent saying, I'm going to take that if you can't play with it nicely. I'm going to take it away. So it becomes a punishment for both of them. So what you can do instead, if they're about to rip something apart or break something because they're both yanking it, yes, you take the toy and say, I'm just going to hold it until things get calmed down a little bit, and then I can give it back to you.
Mhm.
So all I'm doing is holding it for a minute while we talk about this. And then it's different from, I'm taking this and I'm putting this away and you can't have it for a day because you don't know how to play with it well. And it's not about that. It's just that they're so mad at each other that they're grabbing into the, and might be breaking it or something. So you're just saying, you're not able to play with this with the emotion you're experiencing right now. I'm going to hold it until your emotions calm down a little bit, and then we can figure this out.
Right. Problem solve when their brains are ready.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right.
So we did have a question come in. Kristen asks, when I ask my 3.5-year-old to express his point of view to his brother in a conflict, he says, no, you tell him. Should I speak for him or not?
Good question. Um, Let me also say that when you've got really little kids, 2 and 3 year olds, you can't expect a whole lot. You can do problem solving with them, but you can't expect a whole lot of give and take between the kids in terms of I wanted this and the other one, them each giving their side of the story. But you want to we'll talk more about how to do that, but because little kids are just so impulsive and so emotional. So let's see, Kristen. I think that first of all, ask yourself, and if you chat in, that would be great. Why is it, do you think, that he wants you to do it for him? This is your best guess. This is an assumption you're going to make. Why is it? Does he think his sibling is going to make fun of him? Does he think that he doesn't have enough validity to say what he feels? I don't know. And it's completely your assumption about this, but do ask yourself that. Why doesn't he? And I don't think if he says, I want you to do it, then I think if you do it, you want to do it through him. So you want to say, it looked to me like you were mad because Sammy took your toy. Is that what you were feeling? So you want to just keep checking it out with him. Do you feel this or that? And see if you can get, all you parents out there, see if you can get more into feelings other than just mad and sad. Get into teaching your kids about what resentment feels like and what guilty feels like and all the other things. So ask him about a lot of different ways he might be feeling for him to say yes. Mm-hmm. And he's maybe just going to say yes to anything to get you off his
Right. You could also whisper to him. You could also say, what should I say?
Yes.
What do you want me to say?
Right. Yeah.
Because it might feel safe. Kids can feel unsafe with each other, just like you were saying, Bonnie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if he's able to say it to you first, it might sort of lower that fear response he's having to say it to you and eventually to say it to his brother or to maybe glance at his brother over time.
And maybe you even go into the other room. Maybe you even say, do you want to tell me in the kitchen or something?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. But be sure you're not taking his place in the problem-solving situation.
Right.
And then you see what needs to build, and you want to start doing this when your kids are young, so it can build. So by the time, they're 5 and 8 or 8 and 10 or whatever, they're really able to do this on their own. You really want your goal is someday to hear one of the kids say to the other in the other room, "Shh, be quiet. We've got to work this out. Otherwise, mom's going to come in and make us talk about it." That's your goal. That's what you want to hear. So, let me, unless do you have something else to say?
I was just thinking that this can be a hard skill. So as you're doing this with your kids, you're totally going to screw up. I do this with my daughter and her friends, and I still screw it up sometimes because we have our own stuff that go on.
Absolutely.
Just remember to be kind to yourself, and you'll think about what you did, and you'll go, okay, next time I'm just gonna try again, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
just keep trying it.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're developing these skills right along with them, and it's gonna take time.
Yeah.
Like not just like a week.
Exactly. And I would bet that there's not very many parents out there who experienced this when they were kids with their parents. Right.
How many of us had collaborative problem solving with our siblings? No, we just beat the heck out of each other.
Exactly. The other thing is that it's important to know that, and then I want to get talking about the no blame solution because I really love that. But it's important to know that sibling fights are, and you touched on this, Amy. Sibling fights are the way siblings learn how to deal with each other, and their brains are completely and utterly immature. And so their impulses, especially with little kids, 3, 4, and boys, so many boys I hear about are very impulsive for many years, up to 8 and 9, and that their impulses get the better of them. I mean, we know, right? We know that we say and do things that we don't mean, but we don't seem to give our kids that leeway. We want them to do it right every time. Why can't we say, "Oh, I'm sure you didn't mean that." We're thinking that was vicious. So mean, he's going to be a bully, and we're immediately catastrophizing into the future of what our children are going to be like based on these very, very immature brains and these impulsive reactions.
Right. It's crazy how that fear can take over, right? We suddenly are afraid of the worst. Like you said, he's going to grow up to be a bully, and our fear just then comes out our mouth in a really sometimes mean way too.
Right. And then we have to teach something so that doesn't happen. And we get so attached to being right about what to do that we lose the relationship. We're not in the present moment. We're either flying into the future with our, wild expectations and fears of what's going to happen, or we're in the past, on what I was taught and what happened with my siblings. And oh my God, I ended up hating my sister so much, and I don't want that for my children, and I've got to make it, all the stuff that goes on. But anyway, sibling fights, I think, are necessary. And the language that siblings use with each other is, all I want to say is, don't take the words they call each other in the terms that you think of them in your adult world. When kids call each other stupid and butthead and twerps and all these terms, a lot of it is language that they understand with each other. It's language that they have And they know, they will get back at the other, you know, if one of them calls them that, they'll get back at each other. They'll do things to sort of even the score. But we get so freaked out when we hear them use words that push our buttons that we just get down on them and say, you can't call him that. You cannot use that term. Now, quickly, let me say, when it is always coming from one child to the other, and the other is clearly feeling and saying things, you know, my brother hates me and I'll never be, you know, when you're really getting the sense that one is seriously name calling over and over and over again to really belittle and demean the other one, then you definitely need to work on that. And so aside from working with both of them together, and when you're doing conflict resolution, especially with kids who are a little older, you want the rule is you want to give them each uninterrupted time to tell their side of the story. So one of them gets to tell the other. Now, this is the thing that takes a long time to master. So, you know, like Amy said, do not get down on yourself for not doing this right. And I think a lot of us don't even broach problem solving because we're so afraid we're going to do it wrong. And do not be afraid of doing it wrong. You've got to. So you ask one of them to tell the other their side of the story. So like Sammy's telling Jonah what his side of the story is, and Jonah breaks in and says, that is not true. And then you say, Jonah, hold that thought. Don't forget it. Do you want me to write it down so you don't forget it? But hold it. It's Sammy's turn right now. So you want to keep that sacred. You want to let them tell their side of the story. And you want them to tell each other. So every time they tell you, you just redirect it and say, tell that to Jonah. He's the one who needs to hear that. And so then you give them 2 or 3 opportunities, if you get that far, to tell their side of the story. And then you say what you've heard. You might say, so it sounds to me that Sam feels very sure that it was his turn to have that toy. Jonah, do you agree with that? See, you are not the one to make the judgment call. And if he says no, then you keep at it. Now, obviously, you can't do this with every sibling fight. You don't have the time. And do not attempt to do this when you know you're about to kill someone. You want to be in a good place. You want to be relaxed. You want to have the time and see where it goes, you know? So, but you want to just kind of keep it going back and forth. The rule is no one is going to get in trouble. No one is going to lose. And you want to reassure them that over and over and over again. No one gets in trouble. No one loses. And we work this out until it's okay with everybody. And I can get into this a lot more in detail. I do have a chapter on problem solving in my Confident Parents book.
I always think it's helpful to read more about it too. Because it's all kind of theory until you get in there, but also having examples and understanding it more is helpful. We have another question. This person says, our boys are really nasty, like, quote, I'll kill you, and quote, I'm going to cut your head off. They are 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm. I would not pay any attention to that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easy for me to say, I don't know the kids, I don't know the family, but this is the kind of language I'm talking about. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to cut your head off. does not mean to the other child the same thing it means to you.
Right.
Those are very dynamic words for them. They know that they've got power, that those words have power. And so they're going to say things like that to each other. Personally, I would let that go. I don't know how this mom feels about it.
Right. And she's welcome to, or he is welcome to speak
Right
more
in,
about that.
yeah.
And I would say you can even say to that when you hear it, like, wow, you're really angry.
Yes,
You are
exactly.
so angry. You can use big words, right? This is a perfect opportunity to grow that emotional intelligence, like you were
Right.
saying, Bonnie,
Yeah.
growing those feelings
Yeah.
words. You were livid.
Yes. Right. You just feel rage. You wish you could. I am a big proponent of using what I call connective communication, which is saying to your kids what you assume is going on with them. So, I remember saying to my daughter, who was in, I think, second or third grade by then, she had I won't go into the whole story. It's a wonderful story, but it's too long. But she was having a terrible problem with a girl on the bus. And I was holding her and saying, I bet you wish you could pull her arms and legs off. I mean, I am a huge proponent of going right into the fray with what your children are thinking. So when you hear them saying, I'm going to cut your head off, I'm going to kill you, then that means they're really angry. And so it's not your job to then say, oh, you want to kill him, but to put that into terms that you want them to learn to use. Yes, like you were saying, I am so livid about you taking that toy. I get so resentful when you don't pay attention to what's mine and what's yours. And so you can give them that without even touching the words that they used.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't have to tell them. But I do want to say the fact that this parent said they're so nasty with each other. I want to point out that is the assumption that you're making about your kids. And when you think they're so nasty, where does that take you as a parent? You've got to do something about that. You can't have nasty kids. So it just provokes you to get involved. But I just want to point out that nasty is it's also a global word. Does that even translate bigger than just the fights that they have? And can you reframe that to saying, my boy, I don't know if they're boys or not, my boys get so mad at each other and frustrated with each other. That, you see, leads you to a very different head than they're so nasty. You see what I'm saying? It's the words that get us hooked into these places of our own anger, our own guilt over the lack of good parenting we've done, our own resentment over why do I have to have kids who fight like this when everybody else has these little angels who get along just great.
And you laugh because it's just not true. Kids fight, right?
I hear this all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Other parents don't have kids like this. And I say, let me tell you,
Mm-hmm.
because I hear from all those parents and
Yeah.
they do have
Yeah.
kids like that.
And not just the parents that are coming in for coaching or counseling.
No,
You hear
yeah,
this from parents on the playgrounds and
oh,
neighbors, and it's just the reality of what it's like to be a parent and to help children navigate relationships
yes.
and
And when
learn
you
to speak
feel,
for themselves.
and
Yeah.
when you think that you're the only one who has kids like this, then you get afraid to talk about it and
Mhm.
get other advice and stuff. But it really leaves you feeling horrible as a
Mhm.
parent.
Mhm.
But
And
maybe,
resentful towards your children.
yes,
Yeah.
very.
Yeah. Well, we're running low on time, Bonnie,
Oh
but we do have
no.
6 minutes.
Let me see if
Or we
well,
we can actually go over a little bit because this will be recorded. So if you have time and people want to stay or get the recording, either way. But do you want to talk about taking turns versus?
oh yes, I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about the no blame solution. Um,
Let's do the no blame solution. I'm super excited.
okay. The no blame solution is when somebody's been hurt,
Okay.
and it is totally our temptation to blame the one who did the hurting. Number one, that's very unfair because the one who did the hurting, you don't know why the one who did the hurting
Yeah.
did the hurting. You don't know what provoked him. So that's why you shouldn't know what goes on before all this. So let's say Sammy has hit Jonah and or poked him with a pencil or hit him over the head with a metal truck or something, right? And he is screaming, and you come in and you see, all you need to see is that Jonah is hurt. And you go to Jonah and you hold Jonah and you say, show me where it hurts. Don't say, tell me none of this, what happened. That's that is what is right there on the tip of everyone's tongue. Do not say that if you can possibly help yourself. Just say, show me where it hurts, tell me where it hurts. And then you might say, instead, he's going to say something like, Sammy did this to me. And instead of saying, oh, Sammy poked you with a pencil, you say, oh, you got poked with a pencil. You do not want to mention Sammy's name, right? So Sammy is either going to be standing there watching or he's going to have run off. If he has run off, guess why? Because he knows he's going to get yelled at. He knows he's going to get in trouble. So if your kids never have the fear of getting in trouble, your whole family life is going to change dramatically. And you're going to hear from them about everything all through their lives. It's so, when they have a fear of getting in trouble, it just puts a stopper on so many things. So, anyway, if Sammy's afraid of getting in trouble, then you have to go through this a few times before Sammy doesn't run off anymore. And he's just kind of hanging around saying, what's different here? What's going on? Why am I not getting yelled at? And so you comfort Jonah until he is well comforted because he's the one who's hurt. That's the natural thing to do. And then you say, Sammy, would you like to get the ice pack from the freezer or a cold wash rag to hold on Sammy's on Jonah's hurt? And this is a genuine question. Lots of times we ask questions when we don't mean them to be questions. This is a genuine question. If if Sammy says no, then say, okay, I'll get it. If Sammy gets it, and I have seen this happen on film, it is kids want to make amends. When they're not blamed, they want to make amends. They don't have to get defensive, so they get the opportunity. So Sammy gets the opportunity to see the natural consequences of his behavior, which are Jonah being really hurt and mom comforting Jonah. He gets to take that in without being blamed, which means when he's blamed, he's behind this wall of defense and he's only thinking about himself. So, or you could say, do you want to get Jonah's lovey, or his favorite stuffed animal and bring it to him? And this may take some time to do, but that is what's going to heal the process. And you don't have to have any blame, like, Sammy, what did I tell you? Or Sammy, you know better than that. That doesn't teach anything.
Right.
So anyway, he gets to make amends. If Jonah doesn't want Sammy anywhere near him, he says, no, don't hold that on me, or I don't want that. Then you can say, oh, it looks like Jonah's still really, really angry at what happened. Is there anything you want to say to Jonah about it? And, then you can work with children independently too. When, in conjunction with conflict resolution and everything, you can work with them separately and talk about, what I notice is that Sammy says this to you a lot. How are you? Is that okay with you? You might, the parent who called in about I'm going to kill you, I'm going to cut your head off, you might take each of them aside and say, this is what I hear you saying to each other. Is that okay with you? Are you okay with that? And they might just shrug with, what are you talking about? Or you might see the tears well up and say, no. And that's when you need to do some work with them on problem solving. And then let me see if I can quickly talk about taking turns. Instead of taking turns, because when we say, okay, this is so-and-so's turn, and you set the timer and there's this much time, then that child grabs for that time. And whenever it's about taking turns, it's getting that turn and holding onto it and not wanting to let it go. If you can, and this also takes a lot of time to get talking about. Laura Markham talks about this in her Sibling book quite a bit. Let each child play with what they're playing with for as long as they want.
Yes.
And you have to work with the other one who wants that so badly to say, it's really, really hard, isn't it, to be patient and wait. You really, really want that. Let's see if we can find something else to do or something. But if each child knows that they can play with it for as long as they want, then they're much more likely to give it up and give it over.
Yeah, I love that. And it does take time as they unlearn. They might play with that pen a lot longer, or they might sort of go back and forth. But the end result, the long-term goal, is so much skill development and empathy development and feeling valued.
I had this situation with the 3.5-year-old twins the other day, when one of them was playing with something, and the boy was playing with something, and the girl wanted one of the parts of it, and he wouldn't let her have it, and she had an absolute meltdown over it. But he's just nonplussed, he's just playing, And I said to him at one point, when you're done with that, you could tell your sister that it's her turn. And he didn't pay much attention to me. And then I saw that he was done with it. And then I think I reminded him again, be sure and tell your sister when you're done with it, because I know she really wants to play with it. And then I saw him a bit later, and I said, did you tell your sister that you were done with it? And I think I said, that would be so nice to do that if you did that for her. That would be such a nice thing to do. And then when I saw him a bit later and I said, did you tell her that she could play with it now? And he said, yeah, I did. And I was actually amazed. Did. So you want to talk about what a nice thing that is, to be sure and tell your sibling when you're done with it.
Yeah. It can be really hard to wait. We might think it's been like, man, this has been the longest 3 minutes of my life. Why haven't they given it over?
Yeah.
Expect it. Try not to even look at the clock for 10 minutes.
Right, exactly.
Because it can be pretty excruciating sometimes.
Yeah. And especially for the one when one is screaming.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell them a little bit about your tell them a little bit about your newsletter and the work that you do.
Okay. So I have a newsletter that I send out twice a month. The first part of the month, I give a lesson on something I want to write about, and then my blog is also in there. And then the second half of the month, I answer readers' questions. So you can send me questions to bh@bonnieharris.com. So the website is both connectiveparenting.com and bonnieharris.com. And my email address is bh@bonnieharris.com. So you can send me questions. I will answer your question right away. And then it goes in my file, and then I use those in my newsletters, and a story. And then coaching, I do coaching or counseling with parents. And I give parents an hour. Anybody who wants to check out working with me, what that would mean, I give parents an hour at no charge to just see if I'm who they want to work with. And then we talk about how to go further after that, but if you even want to go further. So just contact me at bh@bonnieharris.com.
Awesome. And we'll put this in our follow-up emails with the link.
And I also have a great the Facebook page, Bonnie Harris Connective Parenting. There's a lot of great conversation going on there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love those Facebook pages and groups. They just provide so much support for each other. And
I know. Yeah.
Really great.
Mm.
Well, if you could leave parents or caregivers with one last thought.
I think it's really because for me, 99.9% of parenting is dealing with you, the parent. And so I think the place to start is understanding what's my problem and what's my child's problem. So I'm not asking my child to take care of my problems. I'm tired, I've had a long day, so I'm going to scream at my kids and tell them to go to their rooms. That's asking them to take care of my problem. Yeah. So know the difference. Know what is your problem and start with I. You can hit the roof. I get so angry when all I hear is screaming and yelling. That's a very different message. Then you can ask them to help you with your problem. And also, you don't take care of what is your child's problem.
Yeah.
Help them. When you have a good boundary, this is what I term boundaries. When you have a good boundary with your kids, then you can help each other with your problems, and you want to. And that's the kind of family you develop, a team of people who help each other and work together.
I love that. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you, Amy. And we're going to do a Q&A next.
Yes, we have a Q&A next week. Friday, you're joining us? Is that right?
Friday at 12.
at 12. So if y'all want to join us for the live Q&A, you can also submit questions via Facebook that we'll either answer in Facebook or at the live event. So please join us. And thank you for being here, for really just taking the time to be here and listen in and ask questions. So we'll see ya. Bye.
Okay, bye everybody.